Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just want to let you all know that I am currently recording this training session that I'm going to do. So just be aware that you're being recorded. If that bothers you, please feel free to leave. Otherwise, anything that you choose to share with me may be part of this recording. I will edit it somewhat before it goes public, but and I'm sure that Linda will be happy to do the same with the copy that she gets. But anyway, let me take a moment first to introduce myself because some of you I haven't met before. My name is Cindi Lynch. I've been with Stenograph for over 30 years. I'm actually a second generation trainer. My mom was a trainer before me. And so I have been working on CAT systems since really the early 1980s. I've been teaching for Stenograph on various CAT systems since 1989. And Catalyst since its inception. I've been part of the development team as well as the training and support, and also now the marketing team. So hopefully what that means, since I've been doing this a really long time, is that if you have any questions, I will be able to answer them. Just to give you a little background too about me and Linda, Linda has been not only a Stenograph customer, but a good friend of mine for many, many years. Let's see, wait a minute, I'm just getting a notice here that says I have bad network quality. It suggests I move to a better network. Unfortunately, I don't have one, so hopefully everyone is able to hear me okay. I will do my absolute best to maintain the quality here as best I can. I've shut off everything else that I don't absolutely need, so hopefully it's going through. Anyway, Linda and I got to know each other way back, I believe it was the early 1990s. I attended some conventions and we got to know each other there. And Linda used to be a certified independent training agent for Stenograph, and she is just an absolutely wonderful person, and I'm sure you've gotten to know her fairly well through your studies and or since you've graduated. So I am always delighted to help her because I've always had a bit of affection for the Internet Scoping School, given that they have given so much to the reporting world. All of the graduates I've ever worked with and met have been outstanding scopists, and you should feel really good about the education that you're getting, because the people who get out there, I'm always very proud and happy to recommend them. Okay, so here's what we're doing this morning. We're going to be talking about RealTeam, which is a feature that was added as of version 20 in Case Catalyst and was improved in version 21. I hope you're all on version 21. If you're not, don't panic. It just means that you need to update at some point. Version 21 was released on March 3rd, so you may not have gotten to that yet. If and when you do need to do that, it's really easy. All you'll have to do to update is to click help, and then you can always just click check for updates. You don't need to do that right now, just letting you know. You can click help and then check for updates, and it will automatically look to see what the latest version is that you're entitled to, and it will allow you to download and install it. So that's the quick way to make sure that you're up to speed. But again, you can do that after this class. There's no need to do that right now. Okay, so the reason that we're talking about RealTeam is because it is going to be the most important aspect of Catalyst, aside from your actual editing skills, that you'll need to have in the coming months. Now, I doubt you're going to see too much RealTeam activity during the next couple of months, or however long this COVID-19 virus is going around, simply because there's just not that much work going on out there right now. A lot of people have shut down because of this. However, I know that in several states, they've now changed the rules so that reporters can remotely swear witnesses. I know they changed the rules in Florida and in Texas. Virginia already permitted it. And I don't know what all the rules are for all the states, but I suspect that as this thing continues, and we don't know yet how long we're all going to be isolated. Well, we've all been isolated because all of you work from home as well as I do. But however long this thing lasts, it's possible that there will be less work around, so you probably won't get a chance to use RealTeam right away. However, when you do, you're going to absolutely adore this, because not only is it for you to be able to help reporters, it's for you to be able to help each other, because RealTeam can be used not just in real time, but also as something that you do together so that you can get a transcript out faster. So, and I'll tell you something, as soon as this whole COVID-19 thing is over, I guarantee you the reporters are going to get slammed like crazy, because anything that hadn't gotten done while people were being cautious is going to hit them like a ton of bricks. So I expect that you're going to be very much in demand as soon as this is over. So if anybody's panicking right now, please stop panicking. Just breathe, relax. We're all going to get through this. Okay, so let's start with RealTeam. What I'm going to first do is remind you all that if you were to click Help and then to click Self-Study Guides, if you're in version 21, one of the options here is RealTeam Self-Study Guide, and that is a step-by-step instruction guide that takes you through everything I'm about to teach you. So technically, it's not even necessary for you to be here. You could just read all this and you'd get all this information, but hopefully seeing it will help it make a little bit more sense. So here's how I'm going to do it, is I'm just going to kind of walk through this self-study guide. So when you go through it later on, I think you're going to find that it makes real good sense. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to go through is, what exactly is RealTeam? Basically, it's a simultaneous editing feature. It enables you through the internet to share text and audio in real time. So all the RealTeam participants, everyone who's part of a team, they all have access to the text, to everything that you would normally have access to, the text, the steno, and of course the audio. Now, if a reporter is working in real time and she invites you to her team or his team, I don't want to be sexist here, then what will happen is you will in fact be connected to them and receiving their audio and their text simultaneously. Now, the reporter can use as many people on their team as they want. So you might have a single reporter and 2 scopists or 3 scopists or just 1 scopist. It's entirely up to the individual and the circumstances as to how many people they want on their team. In order for you to use this, what will happen is one person will be the host and everyone else will be a participant. The host is the person who invites people. So if you're doing real time with a court reporter, the court reporter will be the host and they will invite you to be a part of their team. If you are a team of scopists who are all trying to work on, let's say, a 300-page job that's due first thing in the morning, and nobody wants to have to stay up all night and finish it all by themselves, so you're splitting it up into sections, rather than physically carving apart the file and then having to put it back together, you can work together at the same time and perhaps get it done a whole lot faster. In that case, one of you would be the quote-unquote head scopist, and that chief scopist would be the person who does the inviting. So you might invite people, you might be invited. We're going to walk through how all of that works. Now, the first thing that everybody needs is, of course, you have to be on Catalyst version 20 or higher. Anybody who's not on Catalyst version 20 can't use this feature. Also, everybody has to have an internet connection. Now, for those of you who live rurally, like I do, I live out in what I call the middle of nowhere adjacent. That's fine. You don't have to have a super strong web connection. We made sure that this would work even at a very, very low rate of speed. So even if you have very, very narrow broadband or a bandwidth, you're going to be just fine. So don't worry about that. You do need to have an edge for Case Catalyst support plan. So you do have to have a support contract. Otherwise, you're not eligible to have RealTeam. Because RealTeam involves a server and a service, they do make sure that you're under a support contract in order to use it. Okay, so you need the internet, you need to be on the current version of Catalyst, you need to have Edge. We all have all of those things right now. So there's one other thing that you need, and I'm going to walk you through that right now in Catalyst, and that is you need to have a logon. Now, if you take a look at my screen here, and I'm going to go slow and point at things, you may see that I have, if you look at that red arrow, I'm pointing at a little dot on the screen. Now, if I hang on that long enough, it should tell me what it is. Apparently, it's decided not to do that. But if I were to click that button, it would be the same as if I were to go over here to the File menu and then choose RealTeam Ready. RealTeam Ready is the same thing as clicking that little grayish, purplish, whatever color it looks on your screen button. When I click RealTeam Ready, or if I click this button, either one, when it's clicked, it will try to log on automatically if you've logged on before. So mine is currently attempting to log on, and it's automatically logged me in. It says you are logged in as, and that's the email address I used for my login. I'm actually going to go ahead and log out for the moment, just so that you can see what happens if you don't have an account. If you don't have an account, this is the screen that would pop up first. It would say, use an existing RealTeam account or an existing cloud backup account to log in. Now, if you are already using cloud backup to back up your files automatically to keep them safe, then you already have a login, and all you need to do is type in the correct email address that you use and whatever your password is, and then just click login. Your cloud backup login can be the same as your RealTeam login. Now, if you've never done that, if you've never had a cloud backup account, you've never taken advantage of it yet, that's something you might want to take a look at some point. If you take a look at the self-study guide that's labeled Essential Skills, it'll walk you through that. However, let's just assume you've never done it before, or that there are some people here who have never done that. And so rather than just type in their email and their password, what they're going to do is click Create New Account Now. And when they do that, it'll ask you, okay, what email address and what password do you want to use? And just follow the rules there. Type in whatever email you want to use, and be aware that this is the email that's going to go to anyone who invites you. And notice that your password has to be at least 8 characters. It has to have at least 1 letter and 1 digit. It's not too crazy. It's not like, oh, and you have to use a symbol and some of the letters have to be uppercase, or don't worry about that too much. You can just go ahead and use a simple password. If anybody wants detailed information about using passwords for accounts and you're concerned about being hacked, go ahead and email me later on. You can always find me at clynch@stenograph.com. I'll be happy to give you a whole lecture on passwords and what the best passwords are, but I keep mine simple and easy to remember. A good trick that some people use is just simply adding the as a middle name or something like that. So like if you wanted to use, like if I was using my dog's name as my password, my dog's name is Maeve, I might, instead of just using Maeve1 or something like that, I might do Maeve the dog 1 or something like that, so that people don't find it easily guessable, and it's easy for me to type in really quickly. Okay, so once you had provided a valid email address and password, when you clicked next, it would go ahead and log you in. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and click login, since it already has my email and password. And you can laugh as much as you want about my bizarre email address. It's a gift from my husband. That's his website. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and log in now. Once you're logged in, one thing that I want you to notice as soon as mine actually does log in, and I'm going to click finish here. Oh, before I click finish, notice here it says auto login to RealTeam at Catalyst Startup. If you find that you're using RealTeam all the time, you can tell it to just automatically log into RealTeam every single time you open up Catalyst. And that way, not only would you be ready for your team whenever your team is ready, but you would also basically be notifying any reporter who might want to use you that you're currently at your computer and ready to edit, so that if they needed you on an emergency basis, they could just go ahead and invite you to a session. You could always say, no, I don't want to be part of that session, but it's kind of nice to know that you are immediately advertising yourself as available to anyone who's getting started who has ever used you in the past. Okay, so I have logged in. I'm going to either select this or not select this. I will click finish, and notice that that little button that was gray before now has it's filled in the blue color, which means I am RealTeam ready. I'm not actually on a RealTeam at the moment because I haven't invited anyone and no one's invited me. Don't invite me. I'm going to walk through the next set of steps, which, by the way, if you're following along in your little workbook, is going to be on page 4, which is create contact list for RealTeam invite. And I'm going to show that to you from the perspective of the reporter. What a reporter would do at this point if they were starting RealTime and they wanted to invite their crew, their scopists, to help them. What they would do is they would start RealTime as usual. The way your reporter normally starts RealTime is that they'll go ahead and they'll click the translate button. They'll go ahead into whatever folder that they plan to work on, whatever case, and they would type a name for the job. So let's say that today's job, I'm going to call it 032020 for March 20th of 2020. And I will go ahead and before I go ahead and start actually writing, notice that I have this option right here, which says RealTeam invite. I'm going to check that box and I'm going to click OK. When I click OK, before, well, it does go ahead and it starts my RealTime and it's looking for my writer. So I'd better make sure my writer is on. Forgive me 1 second here while I turn that on. I have a lovely writer here. I don't know if any of you can see it, but let me go ahead and show it at the camera here. This is my writer, and it says it's connected to my writer. It just wants me to begin writing. And FYI, I am a really crappy writer. I am not a reporter and I never was one. So if you see really crappy standard and you're like, oh my God, I would never scope for her. Yeah, you're right. You would never scope for me because I'm not a real writer. Okay, I want you to take a look here at this RealTeam invite dialog box for this particular file. What it's saying is it's letting me know who's available. Who could I actually use? These are all the people who with whom I have connected previously. And I can see that my friend Barbara is available. I'm personally available. My friend Grace is available. Let me scroll down here. The only person that I know from here who is currently available is Linda, but she's currently offline. However, I could go ahead and invite her, and then if she gets online, she would receive my invitation. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and actually go ahead and create a new user, someone I can add to this. So what I'm going to do briefly is ask someone who does have a login, someone who is currently logged in this group. If you are in fact available and you would like me to invite you so that I can use you as an example, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and then just go ahead and let me know you would like to be invited. So I'm just going to wait for you and see who unmutes themselves. Go ahead and say hello and then tell me your email address. So anybody who has a login. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, this is Heidi. I'm with Moon Creek Editing, and my email is mooncreekediting@gmail.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Heidi. I really appreciate that. So here's how I'm going to add Heidi, and you can go ahead and mute yourself again. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's say I want to add Heidi. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click New, and I'm going to go ahead and type Heidi's email. So, and actually, before I get too heavy into this, I just want to point out one other thing. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to actually close this dialog box. Let's say you were doing this in edit, not in real time, and you wanted to go ahead and invite a friend of yours to edit with you. You would simply click File and then Real Time Invite. So that's the same as a reporter clicking that little option box and asking you to, inviting you the same way I just showed you. So regardless, that opens up this dialog box. So it can happen automatically as someone starts translation, or for an editor, it's simply File, Real-Time Invite. Now again, how do I start a new person to work with? I click the New button. My cursor is live in the email field, so I'll put that in first, and I will put in Heidi's email address and hopefully type it correctly, at gmail.com. Okay, then I'm going to press Tab. When I press Tab, it takes me to the next column, which is the name field. In the name field, and did I just screw it up? I think I just screwed it up. Oops, my bad. I clicked the wrong place. Oh no, it's the end of the world. If I press Shift Tab, it will take me back to the previous one. Tab again will bring me to the name field. So if I'm not sure where I am, remember you can always press Tab or Shift Tab to go backwards and forwards in any dialog box as you're typing in information. Okay, so I'm going to type in Heidi's name. Whoops, there we go. And then if I want to, I can also add a color for Heidi. Let me just press Tab there. I went too far. Let me just modify. There we go. If I click this little down arrow, it gives me a choice of different colors for my scopist. I can choose yellow, pink, light green, blue, purple, or dark green. I think I'm going to go ahead and choose, let's make you blue. Okay, so Heidi is now blue. And the reason that this matters is that you're going to see each person on the team will be in a different color. And by being in a different color, it makes it more obvious who you can select and or rather where they're actually editing at the moment. But you'll see that in a moment. Okay, so Heidi's going to be blue. If Linda ever connects and I choose to invite her, then she will be showing up in purple. And actually, Linda, if you're listening to me, go ahead and if you can and log in. That would be kind of cool if you were available as well. Okay, so notice the next column over, the one that says add to my dict. What that means is if I am the host and I am inviting Heidi and Linda to go ahead and edit with me, when they make J defines or D defines or K defines, whatever type of define they make, should their entries go into my dictionary along with going into the dictionaries on their system. In other words, if you are working on a RealTeam and they have this box checked, then the only thing you have to return to your partner, if you need to return anything at all, will just be the finished text itself. You will not have to send your defines because they'll already have them. They are already part of the team. And the only reason you would need to send a transcript to them is if you continue editing after your RealTeam session is over. We'll talk more about that later. But basically, this column here, add to my dict, is simply asking, does this person that I'm going to invite, do they have permission to add to my dictionary? Some reporters will probably say no because they don't want your defines. Some will probably say, yes, of course I want their defines, and they will choose it. It depends on the individual and what they, prefer. The next column over indicates whether or not they've been invited to the current job. All I've done so far is simply select the little option saying I will invite you. So that's why it doesn't show you as invited yet. Now over here, notice that I have notes next to this. The notes column allows me to add a little note. So if there was something I needed to remember about Heidi, then one of the things that I could do is I could go over to the notes column. Like, let's say I needed to know her phone number so that if I needed to call her, I would know what number to call. I could type that in here. I don't need to know that right now, so I'm not going to bother the poor person. Okay. So I have opened a file. I have created an invitation. I have selected the people that I want to invite. And now I'm going to go ahead and click invite and see what happens. When I click invite, what's going to happen to Heidi right now is that she's going to be hearing a ringing noise, and that ringing noise is letting her know that she has been invited. And she'll get a screen, which you'll see in just a little bit, because I'm going to have Heidi return the favor in about 20 minutes or so, or 10 minutes or so. And she will click the accept button, and then she will also be editing in my file. So Heidi, if you haven't already done so, feel free to go ahead and click accept. You did. And the way I know that she did is look here in the lower left-hand corner. Unfortunately, I can't blow that up for you and make it look bigger. But if you can see in that lower left-hand corner, we can see a blue cursor, and it says that Heidi is currently on page 1. Linda has also joined me, and you can see that Linda is also on page 1. You can see her in purple. Now, as I continue to write, and I will write badly, if they edit, you can see them edit. So Heidi, why don't you go ahead and fix May name is, change that to my name is. And Linda, why don't you go ahead and fix bad will you and make it badly. See how Heidi just fixed mine and I could see where her cursor was? Linda, would you go ahead to bad will you, put your cursor there, highlight it, and replace it or define it. Actually, defining would be the best, but go ahead and J define it or D define it as badly, if you can. If you can't, I'll make Heidi do it, either which way. But somebody go ahead and just click on bad will you and highlight it and then define it. And I will keep writing so you see what a reporter does. But of course, they do it better than I can. Okay, better that I can. Yeah, I make a lot of, and I will weep writing. Oh, isn't that lovely? Okay, so if somebody wants to go ahead and fix that and make that keep, that would be good. Or, oh, there we go. Okay, now I can see Linda going ahead and marking bad will you, and she'll define that. And Heidi is fixing weep and changing it into keep. This is how this works. Now, since I'm recording, they're also getting my audio of what I'm saying right now. Another thing that they're getting, if you take a look at the very, very top of my screen at the title bar, notice that it says Case Catalyst, User Cindi, Case Practice, and the name of the file 032020. Now on Heidi's system, the name of the file is, in fact, Case Practice, and she's also got 032020. She has the same name as I have, because, well, it might have an _1 or something like that with as well, but basically she will be in the same case and the same user, the same case that I have created on my own system. Okay, so what we have done is we've done a RealTeam session. All I had to do, just a reminder, was I went ahead and I clicked the little button here. Notice that it's green now, and before it started out as gray and then it turned blue. Green means you're connected. If it's yellow, it means that it's trying to connect. If it's red, it means it can't connect for some reason. Perhaps your internet is offline or there's some other problem. But if it's blue, it means you're ready. Green means you're connected. This little icon over here means I can invite people to join and help edit in this transcript. Now, bear with me 1 second. I'm going to do some what we call TV court reporting. So that I can create some more pages. Okay, so yeah, that's what your basic deposition testimony or your basic court transport, because what else would the court say? But Heidi, would you do me a favor and come down to the end of the file, just press Control End or just scroll through until you're down towards the bottom. And I just want you to notice that when she moves, notice that it now says, first of all, it shows that her cursor is at the bottom of the file, and it shows that she's on page 2, whereas Linda is still on page 1. One of the new things in version 21 is that as I'm working, if I want to see, well, where is Linda? What's she doing? I can just click her cursor, double click it, and it takes me exactly to the spot that Linda is. If I want to see what Heidi is doing, I can double click her cursor and see what she's doing. If I just hit an arrow key or something else, it will go ahead and move me to where I currently am. So let me go ahead, go back to where Linda is. And then if I just hit a cursor or something else, it takes me right back to where my cursor currently is. In other words, I don't have to change anything at their spot. I can just quickly view what they're doing. Now, why is that helpful? Well, just imagine if you're trying to race through something, the reporter is writing away, you're trying to scope, but you're having a problem. And I'm the reporter or I'm a fellow scopist and I happen to notice, gee, Linda's been on page 17 for a really long time now. I wonder if she's having a problem. What I could do is I could double click Linda's cursor, see where she is. And if I see what the issue is, like, okay, let me double click there. And she's like, oh, she's on blah, blah, and that. Oh, I wonder if she knows that's supposed to be a question. I could go ahead and highlight it. Whoops. And go ahead and define that for her. Oh, look, it's number 4, their question, and fix it. And then maybe she can move on from there and realize, oh, yeah, that was the thing that I was having a problem with. Thanks very much. One of the things, and Linda, if you could go ahead and mute yourself, that'll make it a little bit easier for me to hear, because I can hear your background. Okay. The other thing that can be a really, really helpful thing is that I totally forgot what I was just going to say. Okay. That'll happen from time to time. Let me get back to my handout, just take a look and see where we are. How to connect with your team. We just did that. Okay, let's do this. Let's say we're at the end. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Sorry, let me rewind, come back. Okay, one of the really interesting things that you can do with each other to communicate. Different people are going to have different methods of communicating with each other. One way that they might have of communicating is an outside chat client, like Trillian, or there's various text instant messenger programs. Maybe you would do it through Facebook even. There's a lot of different ways that you can text to each other without having to actually leave your screen. We don't have one built into Catalyst yet. It's been requested, and that's something that we'll probably add as time goes on. Another method that people are using very commonly now is to go to, like, let's say I wanted to make sure that people knew they didn't really need to edit beginning here because I was taking care of that. One of the things that I might do is go into the edit menu and insert a hidden text. And I could leave a note saying, Cindi starts scoping here, or something along those lines. It would help scoping. Yeah, add that to my word list so that you know that word. Okay, so that as other folks were editing along, whoops, as they ran across that little note, they might click that, open it up and say, oh, that's where Cindy's going to start scoping, so I don't need to do this. So you could leave each other notes in that fashion so that you would know what was actually going on in your particular job and know what you did have to do or didn't have to do. The most common method is to really discuss this before you get started, especially if you're doing this during real time. It's really important during real time that you know who's doing what, because of course, not only is it fixing the reporter's job and not are you changing the actual job, but let's say that reporter is not just merely sending out to real time, let's say to their own screen, let's say they're sending out to case view. All of your changes get made in case view as well. For those of you who are have a giant question mark on your heads right now that are saying, what is case view? For those of you who haven't heard of that before, case view is the software, or case view net rather, is the software that gets used by attorneys and judges so that when the reporter is writing real time, it immediately goes out to them. And that can be locally or through a cable or through Wi-Fi or through the internet, and everybody receives a copy of what they're doing. It might also be used for or CART in a class. So if someone is using communication access real-time CART to provide an instant translation for someone who is hearing impaired, they might use RealTeam. And again, they might choose to have a scopist help them so that as they're writing along, they don't have to think about having to edit from the writer on the fly. They can just have someone editing right behind them and fixing as they go. Hopefully all of that I just said makes sense. Hang on to any questions that you may have. I am going to ask for them very shortly. I apologize. This is taking a little bit longer than I thought it would. I forgot how long this takes. So hope nobody's getting bored yet. But just hang on to your questions and I will get to them in just a second. Okay, let's say as the reporter, I'm done now and I want to close out. All I do is close out as normal if that's all I'm going to do. However, if I want someone else to be in charge now and for, let's say, both Linda and Heidi to continue editing, what I would do is I would simply right-click whomever I want to take charge in my connected users pane. For those of you who've never heard of a connected users pane, this is usually something that the reporter would only use during CaseViewNet. However, this also becomes helpful in RealTeam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click View, and then I'm clicking Panes, and now I'm going to do Connected Users, and I can see that both Linda and Heidi are connected to me. Well, let's say I wanted to put Heidi in charge. She is now going to be the host. I can right-click Heidi, and notice that I have the options to disconnect from her or reconnect to her, or transfer to user was the one I was hoping to use, but I'm guessing that Heidi is still on version 20 and not on version 21. Let me do it to Linda instead. I'm going to right-click her. There we go. And I'm going to transfer the hosting duties to Linda. I will transfer to her. Linda becomes the host, and I am now just a participant. And so if I close down, Linda has the live file and all the audio, and I am just done. And now Heidi is still connected to Linda, but I am not. So I can't see what's going on anymore, but Heidi and Linda could continue to work. And again, for normal real time, that's exactly how it would work, is that the reporter would go ahead, transfer the hosting duties to another user, to whoever their head scopist was, their chief scopist, and then they would pack up and go home. Then when they are all finished, what they will do is, or let's say they get home, I reset up, what they would do is they'd probably make a phone call and say, hey, re-invite me to the file so I can see what else needs to be done. So if Linda, if you would do that for me, please, if you would go ahead and re-invite me to the file, simply what Linda's going to be doing on her end is she's going to be clicking File, and then she's going to go ahead and choose the invite option. I don't have that option right now because I'm not hosting, and I'm not in a file. So sorry, that was my husband. So I just needed to make the okay sign. He is closing my door, so he doesn't have to hear this class. Okay. So if Linda was actually in the file and she goes ahead and clicks File and then Invite, she should be able to invite me and Heidi back in, or I'm sorry, Heidi's already in the file. She just needs to invite me back into the file. And when she does so, hopefully fairly soon, Linda will go ahead and invite me, and then you will see what is seen on the scopist end. You can see that. I don't know if you're hearing me getting my ringing sound, but I'm hearing a ringing like a telephone. I'll click accept, and now take a look and see what I've got. I'm now back in the practice folder with this same job, except I've got an _1 because I already had a 3/20/20 job. So the live file is now with this name. And as soon as there we go, you can see, I now can see exactly what's been done, what hasn't been done, and I have access to this file again. And the really nifty thing is that I have access to the audio as well. So if I were to play the audio, I have no idea what you're going to hear or not hear at this point, but if I were to play it, we should hear the recording of what was going on. And you can see it was able to play it back for me. So I have access to all of that instantly, not just because I had it before, but because I have access to this live file. And anything I change right now will change on Linda's and Heidi's ends as well. They see a cursor that instead of saying Linda to Heidi to down at the bottom in blue and purple, they're seeing my cursor in yellow because that was the color that went for me, and they're seeing me on page 1. And so if I wanted to fix something, and I will write badly, you can see them in edit, and I will keep writing so you see what a report does, but of course they do it better than that I can. So I'll change this to than, and then they're seeing those changes. Now, when I made a change just there on my screen, you could see that it did some color things. Some of you may be familiar with that. That's something that we call track changes. When I'm in edit, if I click view, you'll notice I have an option in here called display changes. The way that that's activated is if someone is actually using the track changes feature. Not everybody uses this. Some people use this. It does not happen, FYI, during real time or during RealTeam. It will not automatically show these changes as you go on everyone else's screens. Track changes is something that only works for individuals, not for the entire team. It's been requested to work for the entire team. We shall see whether or not that happens. Another thing that does not happen for the entire team are spell checking. So if somebody was spell checking the file, like let's say I had a proofer who I invited at this point and the proofer started proofing, one of the things that they might do is say, oh, well, I've seen from the transcript that Cindi is spelled correctly, so I want to add that to a word list. So I'll right click that and I'll choose add to word list and I'll add it to my job word list so that spell check knows that this is properly spelled for this particular job. And you see that the little red squiggle went away. So there's no longer a red squiggle on my screen, but that's only on my screen. On Linda's screen and Heidi's screen, the red squiggle is still there because as of right now, red squiggles, spell check information does not get shared with the entire team. So just be aware that there are certain things that it can't do. It can't share absolutely everything, but it can share an awful lot. And the most important bits, the text, the steno. So if I were to go ahead, let me just click back here. If I open up vertical notes, I have access to the vertical notes. If I open up reveal codes, I have access to all of that information. Everything you normally expect, with a few exceptions like no, you don't get track changes and no, you don't share spell check data. So you can access everything that you need to access, but the other people on your team may not see the same things. Okay, last little bits, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. And that is, I'm going to just jump down to page 9 is where it talks about the RealTeam file structure and what is shared and what is not shared. RealTeam toolbar details we already discussed. Reconnection. I did want to mention that if you are invited to share a file and you accidentally close the file without meaning to, so let's say I go ahead and I close this file. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I did not mean to close that file. Well, what will happen is that I immediately get an invitation again. Linda didn't have to do that. I immediately am invited back into the file so that if it was a mistake, I can get back in. Now, if it's not a mistake, if it's on purpose, and I do, in fact, want to get out of here, and I go ahead and I save the file and I close, and I go ahead and get out, and I don't want to be invited back in, I can just decline because I'm meant to do that. I'm meant to close out. So if I close out early, you get that reconnection invitation. Last thing to tell you about is logging out of RealTime. If I want to make sure that people know I am not available, let's say I do not want to be available to any reporters who might be seeing me right now, all I have to do is click this little button and then I can go ahead and log out. Or I can go to File, see where it says RealTime Ready, and I can just click it again and I also get this option of logging out. So as soon as I log out and I click, I can just cancel out of this dialog box. You can see it's grayed out again, the RealTeam Ready icon. So it knows that I'm offline and that it should not bother me with any further invitations. Okay, so that's basically RealTeam. So as you can see, it's incredibly easy to get going. You really only need to know a couple of things. One is how to set up, which was pretty simple. The second is you have to be RealTeam ready to be able to be invited or to invite someone else, and then how to invite people. So let me just open it up. Go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and let me answer any questions that you may have. And I'll just give it a minute just in case anybody's having trouble unmuting themselves. Any questions? If I have no questions, I can just, okay. Anybody?
I have one. I'm Janelle.
Great. Go ahead. Hi, Janelle. Go ahead and ask your question.
Well, in particular, as a proofreader at the moment, I was interested in the spell checking not being shared with everyone else. So that would, I assume, make J-defines then more important to the file so that everybody has access to that. Is that true?
Okay, when you're sharing in RealTeam, by the way, good question. RealTeam, it does get to see all of your globals, so you're sharing all of your globals. Everyone gets a copy of all of the globals that are done. Whether or not they actually go into dictionaries depends on that add my dict thing that I mentioned earlier when you invite someone to begin with. But whether you do E defines, J defines, K defines, D defines, all globals are shared. So whether they're steno globals or text globals, they do go through. So as a proofer, as you're going through, if you see an error, yes, by all means, I would go ahead and either J define it or E define it. If you're absolutely sure that that is something which needs to be fixed, then go ahead and fix it. And yes, if you global it, that means everybody gets the benefit of that correction. So yes, I would global it if it's at all possible to global. If it is not, or if you feel it's a bad idea to global, sometimes you just can't tell because the underlying steno is, let's say it's, let's say the steno was, hang on one second to make this a little bit easier for everyone to follow what I'm saying. Let's say the steno that you saw was something that looked like this, H-A-E-U-L-T, or hate. Well, is that supposed to be hate or hail? You might know from context that it was meant to be hail because the sentence was, oh, I needed to hail the cab, or something like that. But that steno could very easily be something else, and it might not be something that the reporter would want in their dictionary. Plus, who knows, later on they might have written the exact same steno and meant hate. For something like that, where you're not 100% sure, I would go ahead and just replace something like that. And then if it comes up again, it comes up again, and you just deal with it again. If it comes up more than twice, I would say go ahead and global it because it's more likely to be the global and for that not to cause a problem. And of course, if you do global something and it turns out, oh, that shouldn't have been globaled, it's very simple for anyone else to either just undo that global or right click it and undo that global once for that one spot. So yeah, I would say globaling is always a good idea when you're really sure that that is what it's supposed to be and that the underlying steno makes it worthwhile defining. If you're not 100% sure, then the first time, go ahead and just replace it. If it happens again, that's probably a clue that that's the way the reporter writes it, so it might be worth defining. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, no, that happens with the muting and unmuting. Okay, anyone else with a question? I just want to wait and make sure that people get a chance. Okay, since I'm not hearing any other questions, nothing else is coming up, here's what I'm going to do. You will probably, as you try these things, have questions later on. By all means, do yourself a favor, write them down, and feel free to email me with any questions. You can reach me. My email address is clynch@ stenograph.com. And I'm very easy to find. You guys can also find me, of course, on the ISS Students and Grads Facebook page. However, please remember that if it's just a question about your course or something that is, part of your current learning, contact Linda first, because that's her expertise. She knows her school and her class, and she will be the first one to answer your question. However, if it's something where it's a little more advanced in Catalyst, it wasn't covered in your course, it has something to do with working in the real world as opposed to how things were in the educational phase, by all means, feel free to ask me. I'm more than happy to answer questions if I can. And I guess that's it. I look forward to working with all of you and to someday recommending you to other folks. And if you enjoyed this class, please do let me know by just sending me a quick little email. If this was helpful to you, then perhaps we'll do more of this kind of thing down the road, especially as looks like a lot of people are going to be stuck inside, and it looks like we may have some opportunities for more online education type things. If we can do this again, I sure would enjoy doing it. If you found it helpful, if you found it to be a pain in the butt and not worth your time, tell me that too, because that way I can adjust accordingly. So hopefully that was helpful, and I will go ahead and close our meeting now and say thanks to everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.